This was my experience with some cannabis and nitrous oxide last night. Headphones already in, full box of Nangs in my pocket, I excitedly rush up the old staircase to the upstairs office. I close the door behind me and take a seat, preparing to have a cone of some really dank weed. I start thinking about the experience I'm about to have while I exhale and rush 2 packs of canisters into the whipped cream gun. I load one in and follow quickly with the second. A bit of gas always escapes. I wonder how much I lose from that. I start some gentle breathing exercises to prepare myself to hold the gas in. I slowly pump the trigger while holding the gun to my mouth. I inhale steadily while allowing some fresh air to come in through my nose. I hold the hit in deep for as long as I can. I try to breathe in as much oxygen as I can on top of the breath, really pushing my lungs to their edge. I can feel the effects coming on quite quickly. My body starts to feel warm and light, and my sense of self slightly disintegrates as I feel the rush of the waves slowly roll over me. A strong sense of warmth, encompassing euphoria is felt. My visual field begins to coalesce into the regular patterns I experience and almost shimmer over my field of view, a repeating pattern of vibration. There is a repeating sound, not like a nang that my friends report, but I hear a shimmering sound, almost like the sound of fairy dust or something. It almost always reminds me of Kirby. Things begin looking warped as I finish off the gas. I look down, slightly disappointed, thinking, was that it? While still coming down, I pack another one in, followed closely by a second. This time, I prepare a third, but only twist the bulb just enough so it doesn't pierce the nang yet. As I begin to hit the canister, the effects come on incredibly quickly. This time, it's intense. The euphoria was amazing. The body high felt incredible. I was relishing the experience of feeling strong waves walk up and down my body. I could hear that sound, the shimmering of the effect. This sound kind of makes me feel as though I'm in this lobby, this in-between world which connects our physical reality to a more true and simple version. Yet we get stuck in that lobby because of our physical beliefs that hold us back. I pierced that third nang and quickly breathed the gas in. I was definitely peaking at this point and wasn't holding the gas in, but rather quickly inhaled and exhaled the entirety of the bulb. I felt a sense of deja vu that I had a very similar high when I was on MD and nitrous. I started thinking about that experience, and that's when everything stopped. My train of thought was no longer mine. My sense of self entirely disintegrated any understanding that I existed in that moment anymore. I reached the end. I had hit the precipice of reality where I'd gone so deep, I got stuck in the infinitely repeating pattern of our existence. The experience was physically painful. I could feel my neck being hit badly, and I could even hear the sound of wood hitting me, or the sound of a piece of plywood smacking against things. What I was hearing made sense to me at the time, and it felt so similar to what I heard in another experience, so it didn't necessarily alarm me at the time. What I could see was an incredibly strong visual hallucination of basically the end of reality, repeating and repeating and repeating. This experience was generally scary and intense, but the strong sense of deja vu allowed me to step out into my more rational mind, and I realized that all I can do at this point is just ride it and enjoy it. As soon as I had this realization, I noticed that my physical body felt like it was falling backwards, which I allowed it to do. I fell into a filing cabinet really bad, and I quickly realized that I'd stood up in my experience and fallen over about 3 or 4 times. My glasses and headphones had been flung off in the experience, and I stopped myself from falling, from giving in to the experience so fully. As I was coming to, I was so shocked with what I had done. I panicked slightly, but quickly grounded myself by lying down. I quickly realized that the cleaner downstairs was calling out to me, so I yelled out that I was okay. I quickly got up, afraid that people may come and walk into the office and see the mess around me. In my drug-induced haze, I had fallen onto the desk in front of me, somehow shattering my small bong, getting the water everywhere, all over the laptop and printer. Everything had been knocked off, and there were nails and papers all over the floor. Furniture had been pushed over where I had fallen. A hole was kicked into one of the walls. The place was literally trashed. I allowed myself to come down, sitting in the office chair and just taking it all in. This experience was essentially what I had been chasing, and it felt as though it was this huge cosmic slap, like my higher self was almost saying, "These drugs are not safe." Which is interesting, because when I was coming up for my intense experience, I told myself that if I can buy this drug in a supermarket, it must be pretty safe. What was so surreal to me was that I thought I had thrown myself around the office, thinking that this was the experience. After thinking about it, I realized that I was so high, I was almost unconscious. And when I had my trip, it triggered some anxious response where my reaction was to stand up. Due to the intensity of the high, I was unable to coherently navigate my body, which basically meant I kept falling over. The trippy part is that I knew I was falling because I could see it, but everything I was hearing, feeling, seeing, and experiencing fed back into my subconscious that this was my reality now, and all I could do was accept it and allow it to happen. Realizing that I was falling was very disorienting. I couldn't remember standing up, and I had no idea how I caused so much havoc around me. I was certainly shaken up. I had not expected a trip this hard, literally rivaling the combination of LSD and nitrous that I've had in the past. This experience will be one of the most intense I've ever had. In my exploration of the drug recently, I noticed that the sense of déjà vu makes me believe I'm having the same experience, but it's this version of events this time. It's an incredibly strong feeling, and I love experiencing and being in that space. It makes me feel as though I'm uncovering truth about reality and the true nature of everything. However, following this experience, I think I might take a break. The most surreal thing that happened was that I had experienced this trip before, even hearing the wood smacking and feeling as though my head hurt. Yet the first time I experienced this, I was sitting the whole time and just scared that I was stuck in the edge of reality forever. This time, however, in my more experienced and prepared wisdom, my thoughts could follow a more rational line of thinking. When I came out of the experience, I felt as though I had just time traveled from that first trip, and that I was finally coming out of the trip now. It could have been years that passed in just a moment. I really did lose myself in that experience for a moment, feeling as though this was it. This was the final experience. Yet in my drug-induced haze, I had trashed my office at work, bruised my body and my shins, hips, leg, neck, and head, and pulled a muscle in my rotator cuff, which made it very unpleasant driving home afterwards. I went to visit a friend who I told about the experience. It was interesting talking about it. Spending time with him, I noticed I kept spacing out to the trip again, thinking about what just happened. Then I would realize and come to and have no idea what we were even talking about. I left after a couple of hours, but was still feeling off, so I drove down to the water and messaged some of my close friends about the trip to try and integrate everything. I finished off the night by meditating briefly next to the water before heading home. A while back, I went to my friend's house and brought 5 24 packs of nitrous oxide canisters and 1 whipped cream dispenser I purchased online. We inhaled about 2 boxes before one of our friends came over, accompanied by 3 of his friends. We were high and happy and decided to let these guys in on the nitrous experience. The guys my friend brought over had never tried nitrous oxide before, but the rest of us had done it many, many times. I divided up the remaining canisters and started the rotation. I informed them to achieve the best results, they should crack 2 or 3 at once and then take 3 big hits, one after the other. Watching the newbies' reactions was hilarious. I was laughing hysterically at them when I had the strangest epiphany. I visualized myself as a pink-skinned ape man, sitting there, hooting the noises that us primates all have in common. I was a chimp all along, and I never realized it. How funny is that? I was still suspended in maniacal laughter when I heard a giant explosion. My eyes were closed, so I had no idea if the explosion I heard was real or a hallucination, but I didn't put much more thought into it than that. The next thing I heard was my friend screaming, "Holy shit, are you okay?" Whoa, what? I opened my eyes. I heard a scream, followed by gurgling. What is going on? Everybody was standing up now, looking down at my friend. I wobbled over to him and looked at him. His nose was smashed in and bleeding furiously as he lay there rolling around with his hand over his eye. All of us were sitting there staring at him, not sure what to do. Meanwhile, my other friend went and grabbed a bunch of towels and some ice for his nose and eye. We drove him to the hospital and told the nurse that he slipped in the bathroom and slammed his head against the sink. He stayed overnight and was treated for 5 days for a broken nose, concussion, and a cracked skull. I wasn't sure what happened until I went back to gather all the equipment. I could not find the part of the dispenser that you use to screw in the canister with. I did find the cylinder part of the dispenser and the half-open canister that he was trying to crack. I examined the dispenser and saw that the rings where you screw in the canister were stripped and no longer could hold a canister in while it dispensed into the cylinder. It should be noted that that particular dispenser had cracked thousands of canisters by that time, and had already had some leakage issues if used too much over a short period. When he went to crack the canister, it exploded backwards, sending the canister and the screw-on part flying backwards toward his face, crushing his nose and hitting right below his eyebrow before landing on the floor, spinning and hissing. The guy now has a slightly raised left eyebrow and a semi-crooked nose. I could not express to him how sorry I was for what happened. I accepted responsibility for it and helped him pay for his medical bills. I explained to him that though I knew there were leakage issues, that I should have been much more careful. He said not to worry because he was also being irresponsible by doing the nitrous oxide to begin with. He's a good guy. Later that day, I ordered a steel dispenser to prevent this from happening again. My advice to you, if you are doing nitrous with a large group of people, have multiple dispensers or use crackers. Anything else is just too risky. Death by a nitrous oxide charger isn't the way to go. If you're liking this video so far, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below what substance you want me to do next. I really appreciate it. It helps out the algorithm to spread my videos. Thank you, and let's continue on with these nitrous oxide stories. Currently, I'm 21 years old. Since I was 15, I've done a lot of drugs, mostly LSD, speed, and ecstasy. Well, one night changed my life forever and totally destroyed my ability to use drugs. One night at a club, I was on about 3 hits of good LSD. They brought out the nitrous balloons, and not thinking about it, I grabbed one. Now luckily, I was on a couch, or I don't know what would have happened. Well, here we go. I inhaled. Just as I started to let out the hit, my vision swirled. I got struck by a terrible fear. It was like waves of evil deja vu. The swirling pattern started to take form into a single image. The fear was increased, but I couldn't do anything. All of a sudden, the pattern stopped, and I saw what sort of looked like an outline of a fetus, or something like that, and I heard a noise, and it sounded like it said, "Uh-oh," in a robotic video game sort of tone. The little fetus thing charged forward across the room, and everything went red. Now when I say red, I mean my eyes were wide open, and all I saw was a blank red screen. I was trapped, and this pounding in my head was constant and wouldn't stop. It pushed harder and harder, and then I saw the figure again in the red screen. It was sitting in the position I was sitting in. It was like I was looking at an outline of myself from several feet above. I then put my hands over my face and started to freak out. I could see the little fetus bumping its head into a wall over and over, and the robotic sound was now repeating, "You fucked up, you fucked up," over and over and over again, with a strong beat pounding in my head. The fear was still strong, as it felt I was trapped. It was as if my mind knew this was going to happen and was laughing at me. It was like I was in hell. It was a constant wave of deja vu, as if this is what happens to you when you OD, and it's an endless hell. Slowly, I tried to uncover my eyes. I looked up, and everything looked like a robot. Everyone was dancing in robotic movements. Still, I was so scared. I'm surprised I didn't have a stroke or something. I felt like I had to leave the club, but I could see myself getting up and leaving in my head, and I knew that I was trapped here. I finally managed to speak to my friend next to me and said, "I need to get the hell out of here." He said okay, but I couldn't move, and he was so fucked up, I think he forgot what I said a second later. For the next 30 minutes, I sat there in fear as the nitrous faded away and the fear slowly left. Now, 1 year later, there wasn't a day that passed that I didn't think about that night, but I thought it was just because of the mix of drugs and it wouldn't happen again. Well, if you thought that was the worst part of the story, it gets worse. One night, I decided to go to my friends and do some acid. Now, I usually took a lot of acid, like 6 to 8 hits. Well, for some reason, I wanted to try 12. It was nighttime when I took the acid. My other friends just drank and smoked some MJ. We were watching X-Men, and it hit me. A sudden wave of panic, the same feeling I had gotten that night. In my head, I thought, oh shit. I jumped up and jumped out of his window and tried to puke. The fear started to set in, then it happened. Everywhere I looked, it was the fetus now, in a circular pattern. But now it was everywhere. The universe around me was breathing this image, and with this much acid, it wasn't going away. Now it's too much to write, but I was stuck in a 12-hour nightmare of fear, and if I didn't have a strong will, I would have killed myself. About 2 years after that LSD nightmare, I hadn't done any drugs and swore off of LSD and nitrous forever. I still have nightmares of this experience sometimes. As I dream, I get the fear and I start to fall into it. I feel trapped and I can't move. It's a terrible feeling, but luckily, these dreams are very rare. I've tried meditation and other things, but this nightmare still remains with me every day of my life. Now that you have heard my story, I just want to say I feel I have somehow killed a part of my soul. I have wounded myself so deep that even 3 years after the first incident, I still think about it daily. I feel I have ruined part of my existence forever, and what scares me the most is that when I die, I will be trapped in that endless void forever. And all I can say is whoever's up there and takes us when we die, please have mercy on my soul.